Hello everybody, it's Kate at the Library of Whispers, and today I'm going to revisit this book with some coffee. So it occurred to me that I haven't read some of the newer entries, so the more recent Kings and Queens history. I certainly don't think I've done this in a soft-spoken voice, so I thought we would do that today with coffee. And for those of you who haven't seen my Littles coffee collection, I thought I would show you this as well. So these are the three that I currently have. There is chocolate caramel, chocolate chai, and Havana rum. And today we have Havana rum. So let's have a taste. You can really taste the rum in this, actually. It's very nice. Ah, yes. Now you can see. Let's open this one and see. Try and do it very quietly. Hope this isn't too noisy. I hardly have any of this left. This is the chocolate caramel. Very nice. I think this is probably my favourite, actually. Let's put that one over there. And then my second favourite is the Havana rum, which I am currently having. And then this one, chocolate chai. It's nice. It's very chocolatey with a kind of spicy chai infusion. Very nice. These are so good. One more taste before we read. Okay, so I think what I will do is bring the camera down a little bit and then we will begin. So we start with William IV, 1830 to 1837. Born 1765, crowned at Westminster and buried at Windsor. George IV was succeeded by his brother William, who had served in the Navy and was widely known as the Sailor King. Less flatteringly, he was also dubbed Silly Billy for his shortcomings of tact, judgment, and intellect. From 1790 to 1811, he had lived in regular, if unmarried, bliss with an actress, Mrs. Jordan, who bore him 10 children. In 1818, he married a German princess for dynastic reasons, but they had only 2 sickly daughters who died early. William's politics are best described as obstructionist. He had been a Whig when his father's governments were Tory. He was a Tory when his own ministers were Whigs. His grudging acceptance of the Reform Act 1832 indicated the difficulties that the monarchy was having in coming to terms with the pressures of the early modern age. And here he is, William IV, who spent the early years of his life at sea, became popularly known as the Sailor King. He served in the West Indies under Nelson. He had no surviving children, and it was his late brother's daughter, Princess Victoria, who succeeded to the throne. Okay, let's have a bit more coffee. And here she is, Victoria, 1837 to 1901. Born 1819, crowned at Westminster, buried at Frogmore. By the late 1830s, the monarchy was beginning to look a disreputable and even unnecessary institution. Kings were no longer expected to rule, only to reign, and when they reigned as badly as George IV or William IV, it began to be debatable whether they were necessary at all. From this low point, the monarchy was rescued by Queen Victoria, one of the most notable figures in British royal history. Her achievement was to restore respect and usefulness to the crown, and then to go further by becoming like Elizabeth I or Henry V or Edward I before her, the incarnate spirit of the nation, the symbol of its identity and its will. This achievement was not a sudden occurrence. The young Victoria was the unlikely product of the belated marriage of one of William IV's brothers, the Duke of Kent. A lively, pleasure-loving princess, she showed plenty of signs of her Hanoverian heredity. Marriage to an admirable, if sometimes slightly too good to be true, German prince, Albert of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, sobered her and gave her a genuine sense of responsibility. Her early widowhood, Albert died of typhoid fever in 1861, devastated her and sent her into a retirement from which she only gradually emerged. In the last 20 years of her reign, however, she became as completely loved and idolised as Elizabeth I had been, and over an inconceivably vaster empire. Part of the secret of Victoria's success was her ability to mingle shrewd common sense with awesomely high principles. She revered the ideal of family life, but was robustly practical about the tiresomeness of small children. This mixture of realism with idealism was peculiarly appropriate to an age which was daily extending the scope of human capacity through science, industry, and exploration, and which was at the same time facing frightening problems of its own creation. Victoria's other great asset as a monarch was her relative ordinariness in a period when class values were paramount. She embodied the qualities that the middle classes most admired: devotion to family and friends, frugality, conscientious discharge of duties, integrity and reliability. Everything, in short, that was summed up in the word respectability. It was a concept that meant more in 19th century England than it does now. So when her soldiers saluted Victoria's name on the far frontiers of her ever-expanding empire, it was no empty gesture. She was, very especially, their queen. And then we go on to Edward VII, 1901 to 1910. Born in 1841, crowned at Westminster and buried at Windsor. Queen Victoria's eldest son had to endure a prolonged apprenticeship, in the course of which he was not given a great deal to do. He did not always bear his enforced idleness as well as his mother would have liked, but in the absence of a job, it is hardly surprising that he chose to engage himself in the pleasures of smart society. As king, he showed a talent for stateliness that sat well on the monarch of the greatest empire that the world had ever seen, and in more practical vein, he played a genuine enabling role in the diplomacy that led to the construction of the Triple Entente of England, France, and Italy. George V. Born 1865, crowned at Westminster, buried at Windsor. Edward VII's eldest son, Albert, died at the age of 28, and it was his second son, George, who succeeded him. There was something of both George I and George II about the severe and military formality of George V. but he had been brought up in the Victorian tradition and never faltered in his devotion to duty. His reign was dominated by the horrors of the First World War. It was none of the king's making, and he had to act as figurehead for the national will in harrowing circumstances, a role he performed with impeccable dignity. He was haunted ever afterwards by the death of his cousin, Nicholas, Tsar of Russia. After the war, amid the shifting tides of the 1920s and 1930s, the crown stood for continuity and stability in a way that was all the more valued for not being overstated. King George V was an admirable institutional monarch. Coffee. Edward VIII. Here is Edward VIII, later Duke of Windsor. Born in 1894, uncrowned, buried at Frogmore. King George V's eldest son almost reversed his father's qualities. Edward was full of charm, easily moved to emotion, informal and approachable. However, he lacked steadiness, strength of will and sense of duty. As Prince of Wales, he showed concern for the plight of the poor and unemployed. His protest, though something must be done, pricked minds that would have been immune to more serious proposals. At the same time, he led a glittering set of international socialites, always susceptible to loss. He lost his heart at a critical moment to an American divorcee, Mrs. Wallis Simpson. When told that marriage to Mrs. Simpson would be unacceptable to a great majority of his subjects, he preferred to abdicate. He was subsequently created Duke of Windsor, served during the war years as Governor of the Bahamas, and spent the rest of his life in retirement in Paris, where he died in 1972. George VI. Here. Born 1895, crowned at Westminster, buried at Windsor. The Duke of York, second son of George V, had never expected or wished to succeed to the throne, and his brother's abdication cast a burden which weighed on him more heavily than it might have done on others. He was naturally diffident and anxious, and suffered from a speech impediment, but he never lacked bravery or enterprise. He had fought as a young naval officer at Jutland, and was the first member of the royal family to learn to fly, and his sense of duty was invincible. Fortified by the influence of his queen, who swiftly acquired immense popularity in her own right, and has indeed become a legend in her lifetime, King George coped with the aftermath of the abdication in a way that quickly restored confidence in the monarchy. When the horrors of the Second World War descended shortly afterwards on Britain, and on London in particular, the royal couple rose superbly to the occasion. King George VI and Queen Elizabeth stayed at what they and their subjects saw as their posts all through the Blitz, and showed love and care for their people in gestures that stilled the meanest critics. Their daughters served in uniform, and the identification of the royal family with the national will was complete. The effort, however, was crushing, and the king's health was permanently affected. He died rather suddenly in the winter of 1952. And now we go on to the present Queen. Elizabeth II, 1952 to present. Born in 1926, crowned at Westminster. The reign of Queen Elizabeth II since 1952 has spanned a period of rapid and occasionally turbulent change. Britain's position in the world, her economy and the very shape and structures of society have all been transformed, and many traditional institutions have suffered in the process. Through all this, the path of the crown has been marked out by the Queen herself in a prolonged display of unwavering devotion to duty and quiet pragmatism, which has met a nationally felt need and has won her the unstinting respect and affection of her peoples. As hereditary head of state for Great Britain and Northern Ireland, the Queen has symbolic and formal functions and duties, but no direct powers. She is an embodiment of national identity and continuity, and with her family performs countless formalities to mark events in the lives of individuals and communities, and provides valuable patronage for innumerable charities. This is a far cry from the powerful role of Plantagenet Tudor or Stuart monarchs, or even the busy, influential interventions of the Hanoverians, but it meets the nation's need for a social focus and to some extent separates pomp from power. Many would agree that Her Majesty is able to wield a significant degree of influence by virtue of her matchless experience allied to great natural shrewdness. The Queen's reign has seen the Commonwealth taking the place of the British Empire. In 1953, Queen Elizabeth II declared the Commonwealth ideal as being an entirely new conception built on the highest qualities of the spirit of man: friendship, loyalty, and the desire for freedom and peace. By 1966, almost all the empire had gained independence, and a vast majority of the new nations applied for membership of the Commonwealth. Today, 51 former British colonies are still joined in an alliance of voluntary cooperation, and the Queen makes an official visit to a Commonwealth country at least once a year and receives reciprocal visits. Elizabeth II is now the longest reigning British monarch since Queen Victoria, and the Queen's silver Jubilee in 1977 was celebrated with enthusiasm and great displays of loyalty. The crown seemed happily poised in public esteem, and if old habits of deference had already waned, there was plenty of solidly won respect to compensate. The years since 1978, however, have seen the position of all the monarchy disturbed by both personal and institutional developments. Supported by Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, to whom she was married on the 20th of November 1947, the Queen is head of a large family, the first child of the royal marriage, and the current heir to the throne is Prince Charles, the Prince of Wales, who was born on the 14th of November 1948 and was invested as Prince of Wales at Carnarvon Castle on the 1st of July 1969. He married Lady Diana Spencer on the 29th of July 1981. 2 sons were born to the marriage: Prince William, born the 21st of June 1982, and Prince Harry, born the 15th of September 1984. At first, this seemed to be a fairy tale romance and the beginning of a new era of enthusiasm for the royal family and the institution of the monarchy. However, the marriage broke down amid widely publicised bitterness, and a divorce followed. These troubles, together with the divorces of Princess Anne and the Duke of York, were seen by some to diminish the monarchy in public esteem. The death of Diana, Princess of Wales, on the 31st of August 1997 in a car crash in Paris unleashed a surge of intense public emotion, which seemed to demand a greater warmth and more relaxed nature in social attitudes, reinforcing those who sought to reduce the monarchy's formality. Okay, there's a bit more at the bottom. The Prince of Wales, after suffering a period of unpopularity, has shown resilience and willingness to meet the public halfway in its new mood. His long-established concern for the disadvantaged sections of society enables him to meet on common ground many who might be put off by grandeur and pomp, while his evident devotion to his two sons have won him a real measure of respect. Prince Charles' willingness to accept change is reflected too throughout the institution of the monarchy. This has altered significantly in recent times, with the Queen's decision to pay tax, changes being made to the civil list, and the opening of Buckingham Palace to the public to help fund the restoration of Windsor Castle. Debate about the future of the monarchy continues, but the royal family has shown itself willing to contemplate evolutionary change, ensuring that the ancient crown of Britain enters the 21st century with renewed vigour and fresh purpose. So this is quite an old book actually. Let's see when it was written. Doesn't say there. I don't know. Can't see a date. Maybe at the back. Nope. But it was only £3.50, so it's probably quite an old book. Anyway, I hope you enjoy that soft-spoken reading of the more later kings and queens. This has been Kate at the Library of Whispers. I shall see you very soon. Bye bye for now. Bye bye.